Hey, what's up, everybody? Kris Dunn, HR Capitalist, Fistful of Talent. Happy to be joined by my fellow Fistful of Talent member, Tim Sackett. Tim, what's up?
And best friend, right? Best friend?
Best friend.
Best friends.
Michigan native.
Yeah.
Straight
out of Detroit, 8 Mile.
Yeah, you got it all. Hey, Tim, so
You're sitting in the bullpen
I want to
right
point
now.
out, you can find Tim on the Tim Sackett Project. We're going to do this quick, people, so bear with us. I want to point out that I'm with my team at Kinetics. You see him in the background. I'm going newsroom style with you on this video. You like it?
I like it. I think it's pretty.
This is where it gets done.
I keep waiting for people to walk by, like no one's doing anything besides playing like cards in the computer screen behind you.
Also, don't do that. Don't do that. So I also want to point out that I'm sitting in the space of somebody that's taking PTO today, long weekend, and I just want to point out this is her notepad.
Yep.
This is all the stuff she got done. I want to point out one of the most important things is this one, Tim. It says send KD 2 emails.
Glad that was on the list.
That's the most important thing. I'm so glad it's crossed off. That's awesome. Okay.
Can we add some stuff to that list?
We could, of course. All right. So enough small talk. That's our stage banner. Hopefully some people are still with us. We want to talk a little bit about Google for Jobs. All right. So this is like 2, 3, 4 weeks old. Google, if you search for any job on Google now, which everybody does, Google has Google for Jobs that takes up everything above the fold. So they're now delivering jobs to the end user, anybody that searches just on Google, which 99% of America does. And the only thing I wanted to get to today is what's your advice? I've got some advice, but I want to start with you. What's your advice for an HR leader or a TA leader that has his or her spend spread out across maybe a primary job board like Career Builder, obviously has some Indeed spend, it's got all this spend. What's your advice for them? Because the only thing we know is that the current reality is going to change. We don't know how fast, but things are going to change. What's your advice for the HR TA leader? What should they keep their eyes open for?
Well, I think whatever tool you're using, you have to make sure that has a Google integration. We're a Career Builder shop, so CB was one of the first ones to actually build out that integration. So if you post a job on Career Builder, it's automatically going to be above the fold on Google. It's going to show up really high in terms of those search results. Indeed, we know they're not, right? So there's no integration for Google there. So if you're posting a job there, the only traffic you're going to get is people who are coming to Indeed specifically. They're going to no longer get that Google traffic, which is about 40%. They claim in terms of that organic traffic. So you have to know whatever tool you're using. Is that integration built? You can find that on Google. They have a list of those ones that they're actually working with. There's probably a list of about 15 or so right now that they've integrated. And then I would actually do a Google search for my jobs, right? So, hey, I have Java developer, HRU, Lansing, Michigan, whatever it might be, and see what happens in Google, because that's going to tell you whether you're doing the right stuff or not. I think that's super important. The one thing we haven't talked about is just the overall importance of SEO now. Now that Google is actually running your jobs, we've kind of forgotten about that over the years, in having really great job descriptions that are SEO favorable for Google. It's going to be super important, and we've kind of just forgotten about that for a long time.
Yeah, and I think all that's good advice. I think my big advice for a TA leader and HR leader out there is that you've got your spend, right? And let's just say you've got $50,000 of spend, okay, and you spend it a certain way. You know that Indeed is in that mix, okay? Like most people have caught up, they're spending money with Indeed, because Indeed just had that surge that started about 10 years ago and then kind of leveled off 2 to 3 years ago. But, the big thing you got to do is you got to keep your eyes on your analytics, because if you think about the SEO, really what Indeed did is they redefined the job posting, which is how they squeezed market share out of Monster and Career Builder. They redefined it. They scraped every job they could. They became SEO experts. And then when candidate behavior changed, and people started searching for jobs, just going, hey, jobs 30328, the zip code I'm in. Indeed owned that. Or if they search for jobs in a company, Indeed's listings at that company would actually come in SEO search above the company. Right?
Yeah.
So Indeed redefined the job posting, and now even if they're still listed on Google, which they will be, they're going to be way below the fold. And a lot of that traffic that you've always taken for granted, that Indeed took for granted, is going to change. So like my biggest advice for a TA leader, HR leader, is if you've got 60% of your spend on Indeed, like you need to map that out in terms of what it's been in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a little graph going. And what I would tell you, my advice, I want to get your take on this and then we'll close this out. My advice is when you see 10% less, whether that's traffic, whether that's applicants from Indeed, when you see 10% less, you need to like hold a meeting. And if you're at our company, that meeting would be in the war room.
Yeah.
If you're at Uber, that meeting would now be in the peace room based on what's going on there. But you need to hold a meeting because once you get to that 10% reduction, stuff has changed. And you know that's not the word I want to use, right? Mm-hmm. Stuff has changed and you got to have a plan to get going. So what's your reaction to that, my 10% theorem?
No, I agree completely. And I would say you should be measuring that depending on the volume of shop you have on a week by week basis. I wouldn't wait any period of time and look at it like quarter or look at it monthly. Like this stuff is going to change in a hurry. It's already, now you have 3 or 4 weeks within Google being live and you're going to start to see this pretty soon. And the longer you wait, you're just throwing money away at something that doesn't have to be. And we already know most companies, suck at tracking this stuff right now as it is. So it's a good time to come back around and like really focus back in and understand where your money's going.
So our big advice for people to get their heads around Google for Jobs, Tim's first advice is like key. Why don't you search for your jobs on Google and see what happens? That's great. Understand the connections and who automatically gets their jobs mainlined in. Career Builder certainly comes to mind. Indeed is not in that mix. And then my advice is if things are going to change. So if you've got a big Indeed spend, map that out. I would go macro. I'd go like number of applicants you're getting from Indeed. And number of clicks. I would be macro with that. And as soon as you see the 10% reduction, like get your team in an emergency meeting and figure out who moved your cheese and what team you can get together to locate that cheese and move it to where you need it to be. I'm Kris Dunn. He's Tim Sackett. I'm in the newsroom vibe. You like the newsroom vibe, Tim?
I love it.
And I love your filing cabinet behind you. That's it from us. Hey, check Tim out. TimSackettProject.com or TimSackett.com.
TimSackett.com.
The Tim Sackett Project. Love that name. I gave it to him. TimSackett.com. You can find me at HRCapitalist.com. Find us both at fistfuloftalent.com. Thanks, Tim. We're out.